So now that it's November and we have some holidays coming up that involve food and you might be around your non-vegan family members, we wanted to talk about how we approach it and how we've dealt with that individually in our own lives.
I'm Dani.
I'm NISHA.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Hannah.
And this is
The Vegan View.
Cheers.
So do you guys feel any anxiety, or how do you feel around the holidays being vegan?
I definitely get anxiety about it. I think I've talked about this before, but the worst part about being vegan is I feel like people thinking you're just trying to be special or, ask for extra attention. And that's not it at all. You just don't want to eat animals. Luckily, with Thanksgiving and the holidays, you're usually going to immediate family. Mm-hmm. So usually it's people you're pretty comfortable with. But even in that situation, I know it still does make me uncomfortable sometimes, like having to ask my mother-in-law what she's cooking and asking her to cook things, like asking her if she can use vegan butter in the mashed potatoes instead of regular butter and stuff like that.
We have very small holiday get-togethers, both Jesse's family and my family. So it hasn't been too bad because with his family, we just say we're going to do the grocery shopping and make it ourselves. So don't worry about us. So they make their food and we make our food and it's totally fine. Last year we got them to try, we did the Gardein chicken with the stuffing.
That one's good.
It was really good and we got them to try it. I highly recommend that, by the way, actually, and get the gravy from Whole Foods. If you have a Whole Foods next to you, they have a vegan gravy, and that with the Gardein is
it
so
the
good.
mushroom one?
The mushroom one,
yeah.
We'll put
So
it in the
good.
description box. It's really good.
And then with my family, my mom actually really likes the challenge of making everything vegan. So when we had Thanksgiving with her last year, she made all of the sides vegan and then had the turkey and then had the tofurkey for us. So
That's
yeah,
nice. That's
it's
awesome.
not too bad. But if you had a big family, it sounds like you have big family get-togethers. I can see how that would be a lot more stressful.
Mm-hmm. Well, luckily for me, I have options at Thanksgiving. So my parents are divorced. So I have my mom and my dad's family, and then I also have my husband's family, and then we kind of just decide whose house we're going to each year. And last year was actually the first time me and Austin were both vegan. And my mom is probably the smallest group that gets together. So I just asked her, if we drive out to Palm Springs, can we have a mostly vegan Thanksgiving? And so she made a ton of side dishes that were vegan, but then she had a turkey for everyone else. So that was really nice of her to be accommodating, but I was kind of bartered with her. I was like, we'll come out to see you if you make it a vegan Thanksgiving. And then we brought a tofurkey and stuff too. So that's what worked for us.
My boyfriend's family has a lot of food-centered holidays, and they have really big get-togethers. And his mom is so sweet, but she really, I think, sometimes gets stressed out trying to make sure that everyone is taken care of. Mm-hmm. And I'm just one vegan amongst all these other people who she also wants to make sure they have a nice time. So I totally relate to not wanting to be overbearing or seem picky. And so sometimes what she'll do is she'll do the same thing, make a couple of sides that are totally vegan. Even sometimes if you tell the guests, or if you're going to a Thanksgiving and they're going to be making vegetables, sometimes I'll say, don't overthink it. If you're going to make green bean casserole, go ahead and make it. And if you just want to make some extra steamed veggies on the side, I'm actually totally happy with that. I find that when I go to dinner parties, where they're trying to accommodate, they'll try to get all this fancy vegan stuff and a vegan alternative for everything and really spend a lot of money, and it's not even as good as if it was just a bunch of great fresh vegetables and some yummy sides, So I always tell them the simpler the better. I love boiled potatoes. I actually do like steamed vegetables, and then I'll bring a couple of dishes myself.
The first year that we were vegan, that's what we did. We brought vegan mashed potatoes and everybody liked the vegan mashed potatoes. So then that was why my mom was like, oh, I'll just do all the sides vegan because these were better than the normal mashed potatoes.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My family's vegan, so it's never been a problem with my family. But since I live in California and my family's in Texas, I'm usually going to friends' places for Thanksgiving. And I always tell them, don't worry, I will bring stuff. I'm really competitive and I just want to make the best, and I want it to be better than everyone's meat dish. I wanted to physically crush their animal dish. And so I always tell them, don't worry, I've got this handled. And I will bring such big portions, and everyone wants to eat vegan. I feel like if it's not a big deal for them,
Right.
they'll try it,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna want to eat it all. One of my big tips for cooking for meat eaters is sugar, salt, and fat. if you want it to taste good, this is not the time
To be healthy.
That is a great tip.
Yes,
Right.
this
So
is
true.
not the time to do whole starch, low fat. This is the time to really bring out the big guns, bring out the vegan butter, bring out the olive oil, the salt, the real refined sugar, that good white sugar no one uses on Instagram, and really make the food decadent and enticing and really show off how good vegan food can be by using sugar, salt, and fat.
Do you guys ever feel like when you do bring a vegan dish around non-vegan people that they're a little bit too over the top about,
Yes.
like, wow, I can't believe this is vegan. I'm like,
Oh, no.
it's a salad.
Yeah, you can bring something like coffee and they'll be like, wow, this vegan coffee? What's in it?
You guys have really nice friends then.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, I was
every
gonna say,
time
I don't
I
get
bring
that.
a vegan thing, I've brought vegan cheese to places before, and people are like, "Oh, I'm not gonna try that." No,
That's
no,
what
no.
I
And I'm
found,
like,
yeah.
oh my god. I'm like, it's made from nuts. Like, it's really not that weird.
Yeah, I
Like, you'll
know.
eat a handful of cashews, but you won't try my nut cheese. It's the same thing. Try my nut cheese. Just try it.
Okay, but that brings up a really good question. A lot of times people like to pick on the vegan at the table,
Yeah.
make little like jokes, and obviously, you know, they're just joking, but sometimes it's like veganism is something that it's not just a diet. It's not like you just are doing it to lose weight. A lot of times it's like something that's very personal to people. Something that I get a lot is they'll be like, "Oh, you don't know what you're missing." What would you say if someone was like, "You don't know what you're missing"?
I ate it for over 20 years of my life.
Yeah.
So I do actually really do know what I'm not missing.
Yeah.
I think people forget that.
It like reminds people of like what they're
Yeah.
eating when they just like to have their blinders on, you know?
Yeah.
Because they start thinking like, oh, why is she not eating that?
Yeah.
And then it like makes them think about what they're actually eating, and then they have to like defend themselves.
Yeah.
For themselves. It's not
Yeah.
even for you.
That's something that Colleen Patrick Goudreau says. Sometimes she'll say it's actually not the right time to have a conversation at the table while people are eating, because a lot of times they just make these little remarks and they don't actually want to
Wanna
get into a
talk about it.
conversation about it, especially not when they're eating. So she said that when that happens, something that she will do is say, like, we can talk about that. If you really want to know about it, like, I'd love to talk to you about it another time.
yeah.
Because it just creates a weird dynamic when you're telling people the reasons you don't eat meat while they're eating meat.
I've had someone pull me over and say, "Oh, I'd love to hear what you think about the
Really
agriculture industry." And we're at Gracias Madre, and I was still like, "We're eating right now," and I said, "I'd love to tell you everything about it. If you have any questions, I will answer them. But let's get together. Let's grab a coffee sometime or go somewhere." And they followed up. I mean, they're
Nice.
not
That's
vegan,
awesome.
but they were really interested in it. But you have to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. I don't know, because I feel like sometimes though, when the food is in front of you is kind of the moment when it can click for someone, because I think that's what happened to me. I actually cooked my first turkey. I was hosting Friendsgiving, and I volunteered to cook the turkey. I'd never done it before, but it was at my house, so I was like, oh, I'll cook the turkey. And literally, I went vegan a month later.
Wow.
So I kind of feel like actually for the first time handling, because before you like buy your little cutlets at the store, you know,
Yeah.
but handling the full animal was such a traumatizing experience for me that it made me the wheels start turning in my head, you know?
Yeah.
And then I don't know, so maybe sometimes like, I mean, obviously you're not going to start like a controversial conversation
Yeah.
at the Thanksgiving dinner table, but you never know. Maybe someone seeing that in front of them and then being like, oh, she's vegan.
Yeah.
Like,
But maybe you
that
should. Do you
might
think we're
click.
too sensitive to people's like veganism is about being compassionate, but there's a way of being compassionate whilst I mean it's hard because it's like a sensitive subject, so you might get angry. You don't want to cause a fight.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, is it a good opportunity? Are we missing an opportunity to spread the message?
Yeah, I don't know. That's
I never
something I
know.
struggle with a lot, because I think it's not fair that people think it's okay to make remarks to us, but then like we can't make remarks back to them. And I always think of these like witty things I could have said afterwards, but in the moment I'm always just like, you know?
I think, especially with the remarks that people say to you, I think you are under no obligation to laugh them off.
Right.
I think if it hurts you, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to say that's rude or you're being disrespectful, but you don't have to laugh. I think that a lot of the time, even just women or vegans are told to just laugh it off. Everything's so easy. That's great. I've heard it before, but we've heard it before. We've heard it tons and tons of times. you don't have to laugh. You don't have to laugh about someone making fun of you.
Yeah.
That's such a good point.
That's a really
yeah,
good
because I think that there's something to be said about silence. If you're getting made fun of and you don't like it and you're just silent, the other person is going to really think about what they said because they're not expecting you to just be like non-responsive. They're obviously saying it because they want a response.
Silence is sometimes more powerful than anything you could say.
Yeah, I'm kind of a people pleaser. So if someone is being rude, sometimes I will overcompensate for their rudeness by smirking or laughing it off because I don't want them to feel uncomfortable by how rude they're being. I never even thought about that, but as soon as you said it, I was like, I totally do that. I'll like laugh it off so that everything will just kind of blow over and I can kind of manage the situation, as opposed to like, I don't need to be rude about it, but I can thank you for saying that because I feel like that's going to help me so much.
It's just like when kids are bullied, you can either teach them to engage and build this fire, feed the fire, or you can tell them to be silent and sit in their silence and really be a mirror to that person who is disrespecting them.
Something that helps me a lot is whenever I am in a situation where I know I'm going to be getting asked a lot of questions about veganism, I get a little flustered and I can't remember any of the things I know, like any of the facts, like things
Text
I
NISHA
read.
really quick.
Seriously.
I know.
So I think it's a really good idea before events. Rewatch a documentary, listen to a podcast, like you said, like
That's a good idea.
just get a lot of that kind of like saturated in your brain the week before so that you have little things to say. My rings just got stuck together. Or if all else fails, just distract them with your clumsiness. But yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I flood my brain with information so it just kind of rolls out naturally. Otherwise, I get tongue-tied.
I mean, I've honestly thought before, like, I'm just not even going to go to Thanksgiving this year because it's so hard to see a dead animal sitting on the table and then for us all to be sitting around saying a prayer together and, you know, talking about peace on earth. And when I'm like, all I can stare at is this dead animal that's literally the center of our table right now.
And then on top of it, everyone's making fun of
yeah,
you.
that's become like the center of the holiday. And so I've had this like internal battle where I'm like, do I want to like protest and boycott Thanksgiving because it has become this holiday that's centered around eating a dead animal? Or do I, you know, take the high road and bring my vegan dishes so that I can still be with my family? And obviously that's what I've done, but I'm sure there's vegans who have been like, no, I can't, because it's hard. Everything that day reminds me of everyone eating a dead animal that day.
Yeah,
you know?
it's true. It really does. Going to the grocery store and seeing all the frozen turkeys, and it's way more frozen turkeys than you've ever seen in the grocery store. And you're like, how did that happen?
And everyone
like,
talking
why?
about how much their turkey weighs and like, oh, I got the, you know, I'm just like, oh,
And
I
just
got it
the
from
whole
the farm.
process of cooking it is so gruesome.
Isn't
and
it
like,
so weird how your whole life it's just a turkey? It's Thanksgiving and it's just a turkey, and then all of a sudden you go vegan and it's like something lifts over your eyes and you are like, it's a turkey. Those are dead there's a bunch of dead animals in there. Like you always know that, but it's like a different level of knowing. Where you're like, oh
For
my
me,
God.
it took such a long time to make that connection. Even when I was vegan, I wasn't really thinking, oh, this piece of salami is an animal. And it recently has just clicked with me that now when I see this trough of frozen turkeys, it's an animal and each one of them was alive, and it's so sad. But I really believe that being on this earth is about loving people and talking to people and being around the people you love. And it's one thing if you feel like it's going to sacrifice your mental health by being there with your family, then I'd say maybe take that year off, do your own thing. But you're going to be a great example by just going and being understanding and kind and being the good vegan representative in the room. And Colleen Patrick Goudreau has a really good podcast called Being the Vegan in the Room. I think I've said it on a couple of these
She's
videos.
amazing at stuff like that.
she's
Yeah,
awesome.
I've cited it for a couple episodes before, but it's really good. Maybe listen to it on your way driving there, and it'll give you a little zen space.
That's a good idea. And another cool thing that like Mr. and Mrs. Vegan do is that they do Thanksgiving, which I think is so cute.
I went to that one year. It was one of the best Thanksgivings I've ever had in my life.
So if you have that opportunity where you can host an all vegan Thanksgiving, you throw this awesome Thanksgiving party that's completely vegan. Have your doors open, invite whoever wants to come stop by, and like you can kind of be like this celebration of life instead of celebration of, I keep pointing at the pumpkin like it's a dead turkey. Death. This dead pumpkin.
So a question that I got from a viewer one time was that she was at her boyfriend's mom's house, and her boyfriend's mom had said, oh, I'll make you something vegan. And then she looked in the trash and she saw some cans of chicken broth. And she was like pretty sure that she used the chicken broth in the recipe and just thought, oh, it's not a big deal, I just won't tell her. But she was really like nervous. She was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should eat it. And you also don't want to like make a bad impression in front of your boyfriend's mom. So if you guys were over and at someone's house and you were in that situation where you suspected the vegan food wasn't really vegan, what would you do?
I mean, that's happened to me before. I know this is probably like controversial. In that situation, they're trying to accommodate you. When you put it in someone else's hands and you don't have the full control over it, I mean, it's up to you. Like, you could be, argue with her about it, but I just would probably let it slide in that situation. And then the next time I go to her house, I would just probably be like, very like, oh, I brought my own,
Yeah.
just very like upfront about bringing my own thing the next time. Yeah. If it was like my mom, I would just be like, yo, mom. That sucks,
Yeah. I've been worried about that too before when people make me food and stuff. But it's always so nice and such a nice gesture that I feel like I'm so thankful for it. But at the same time, I do get a little worried. In the past, I'll usually just ask a bunch of questions like, where'd you get this? This looks great. Oh, I need the recipe. And I'll ask like what's in it and stuff. And that kind of makes them feel good because they're like, oh, like you like what I made? That's great.
That's
and
a
then,
good idea.
Then that way you can kind of find out if maybe there's something that's not vegan in it, and then you can just try not to eat it.
I don't know. Now I'm like backpedaling because I'm like, if it was actually meat, like I would never eat it.
But what about broth? Like broth is interesting. I mean, I wouldn't want it, but a lot of times that could be something that people would think, oh, that's not that big of a deal. So they would just use the chicken broth that they already have instead of going out and getting veggie broth and just think that you wouldn't care, except you totally...
Or they wouldn't know, because I think some people just don't get it. They're like, oh, you're vegan, but you eat fish still, right? And I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's true.
I think for me, if I saw them physically put milk or cheese or chicken broth into it and I knew that they're cooking with it, then I would be like, hey, just to let you know, I don't eat animal products, and I just saw that, and just to let you know for next time. But if I was just assuming, or I saw it in the trash can, or I wasn't sure, I would just let go and let God, let that situation slide. Having trust within someone is more important than picking it apart. And sometimes you just have to let it go. And
or you could just like ask your boyfriend to ask her. Yeah. That's what I would probably do. I'd be like, go ask your mom if that's vegan.
I think a good way to avoid it altogether is just if you know that she's going to potentially try to make a meal for you, just say, oh, no, tell her not to worry about it. Like, I'll bring my own.
Don't be afraid to insist.
Yeah. Oh, no, I insist. I feel like
that's definitely always the safest route, too. Mm-hmm.
So to sum up what we've already talked about, 1, be proud of what you believe in and stand your ground. And if you can, insist on bringing your own or host your own Thanksgiving. Be sure to get into a good headspace. Maybe listen to a podcast or a documentary on your way there so that you're in a zen, tranquil mood when you get to deal with friends and family. And don't be afraid to join our Facebook group. We post a lot of uplifting, encouraging things in there, and you can tell us all your Thanksgiving stories, and I think we can give good advice. We have put up recipes in there all the time, and it's really fun, uplifting community.
So we will link all of our Thanksgiving videos that we've done in the past. We'll put them in the description box if you guys are interested in checking those out. And make sure you subscribe to all of our individual channels. Check out our Instagram page, our Facebook page like she mentioned. And we'll see you guys next week for another episode of The Vegan View. Bye!